Welcome to Cannoncast, the Cannonball Festival podcast where you can meet the artists of the festival one-on-one. Cannonball is a performing arts festival in Philadelphia and is a hub of the Philadelphia Fringe Festival. We present new and groundbreaking work from local, national, and international artists working in dance, theater, circus, and other performing arts. Today, I speak with John Michael Colgin about his show Spank Bank Time Machine.
My name is John Michael, and my pronouns are he, him, sissy with a C. Sissy stands for cisgender because I'd like to remind my cisgender friends that no one owns normal. Hey, you're as weird to me as I am to you. You don't.
Did you?
You don't like smelling armpits? Weird.
Did you ever, this is already such an abrupt tangent, but because the word normal came up, have you read The Trouble with Normal?
I think it's, I reference it all the time. I think it's a very important book. In the same way, I think Bill Maher is very important, and people don't like it when I say that because they can't, listen to someone they disagree with.
I was thinking about this phrase, no one owns normal, which I think that's such a fun phrase and such a fun reminder.
Yeah, our normal right now is not bombs and famine, but that is a normal for the people we don't want to talk about. The algorithm doesn't want us to talk about people in Gaza. There's been a lot of news about how it filters out. Let's imagine we had a better segue. Trouble with normal, the first paragraph, which I think is called an introduction. He talks about in the early 90s how there was a big study that got lots of funding to figure out if there was a gay gene. And he talks about the study, and then he asks the reader, can you guess if that study was funded by liberal groups or conservative groups? And I always love asking this question. I bring this up a lot. And no one ever gets it right. Do you remember this part in the book?
Only very vaguely. It was back in college that I read through it.
Samesies. Can you guess who funded that study, liberals or conservatives?
And the study was asking, is there a gay gene?
Yes.
I'm going through so many iterations of second guessing myself that I think I'm just going to go with my first gut and say liberals.
Wrong. Do you want to take a second guess?
Was it the conservatives?
Wrong. It was both.
Both?
Implying if being gay was a choice, it would be wrong.
Right.
And that's the queer identity right there.
Right.
And it's really interesting now because there's a lot of people who have cis, hetero, passing privilege that, and even in their relationships, it looks just hetero, but, they use they pronouns and they don't identify as cis. And, there's a lot of possibilities to that. Do they actually not like it when someone associates their identity with a man or a woman? Or do they want to embrace the idea that categories shouldn't be categories? Or do they want to be an ally? And then this idea of all my younger friends, I have so many younger friends in my life, I'm 36. In Chicago, the majority of them are trans, because where else do they have to go? And, I'm constantly, talking about them in my recovery groups, which sometimes are more cis and straight than are my normal, hangouts. But, being around them, it just, boggles your mind of like what other labels and categories have held us down, and like the way we describe ourselves in different ways. It's just, it's like we forget that our medium is about change. The theater and storytelling is something happens and it does something else, and labels make us think we can't do things. And the young are going to save us. And it's there was a New York article about the sex recession, which 1 in 3 men didn't have sex in 2022, 1 in 4 women didn't.
Wow.
That's why the artificially intelligent authoritarianism is going to win, because we're so lonely. We're on our phones. But anyways, in that article, it said that 2% of the population over 30 is trans non-binary, and 5% under 30, it's 5%.
That's a large increase from over to under 30.
So Bill Maher says that's like a popularity trip. But there was a podcast of his with the actor who plays Lex Luthor. So this was Lex Luthor from the WB Superman series. I think it's called Smallville or something or whatever. There's so much content. The Lex Luthor was like, no, it's not a trend. And all throughout, Lex Luthor was asking like, do you have trans friends? And Bill Maher was basically like, no. But Lex Luthor was talking about the people he loved and constantly bringing up examples. And, it's so sad that we diminish straight men when we need them. But the way he was talking was like, oh my God, it was wonderful. But what he said was that it's not a trend. It's a thing about exposure. It's a thing about knowing that it's possible. And then he brought up left-handedism and how when the church all of a sudden was like, okay, maybe left-handed people aren't the devil. Well, all of a sudden there were more left-handed people.
It's so interesting to me that it was Smallville's Lex Luthor that was sort of like championing this conversation. Had they intended? Is he particularly active in like trans activism? Or is that what he was on Bill Maher to talk about?
I think he just is lucky enough to have trans love in his life. And if we're gonna stereotype people negatively, I love to stereotype people positively. And if the trans people out there aren't dead, they tend to be extremely emotionally intelligent or super sensitive to identity and to resilience. So like when I think about who was there for me when I lost my friends to overdoses, it was the trans people who were the most useful to me and who weren't scared of me.
I'm curious about, you said earlier that labels tell us that we can't do things, and I'm curious in, we talked about these labels that like you identifying yourself as cisgender, as you said, sort of helps remind cis people that they don't own normal. I'm interested in this connection between like labels that tell us we can't do things and then labels that do expand things.
Well,
Is that
they all tell stories. They all tell stories. So for me, the story and my pronoun being sissy with a C, like in my emails, the signature has the cis hyperlinked to the Wikipedia page of the sitter. Me saying sissy is also about like how tough it was being a gay man and being called sissy, and then how I called my friend sissy and even faggot in high school. And I got physical with my family because I was homophobed all the time and homo hysteria. So when I think about that pronoun sissy, it's that. I also think about the idea of what I had to be. So straight people, there's a stereotype, or not a stereotype, but a trope when talking to gay people and asking them, when did they come out? And then there's a follow-up question of, when did you know? I came out in 2010, right before the It Gets Better movement from Dan Savage happened. And that was because of Tyler Clementi and all the gay suicides who happened to be mostly white. But anyways, when I came out, I didn't know I was gay. And that baffles people. And it's because of labels. It's because all my life, I grew up thinking I was supposed to impregnate a woman and work for her and have her do things when I was gone and raise my children. My mother told me what I was going to name my children growing up. So the 6 months before I came out, I looked up someone from high school on Facebook, and I was obsessed with him. And I didn't know that obsession and the amount of times I thought of him was romance, because I was told it wasn't there. I didn't know my favorite teachers were gay, because it was all labels. Tell the audience what I'm doing with my hands.
I think the sound effects say it better than I could. This is the return of radio dramas. I'm thinking just about like all the different notions around like labels and queerness and how that sort of intersects with like your medium, like the form that you're working in. And it's exciting to think about bystander effects being worked through or brought into question by way of like interactive clown.
Wow, you're already there.
I'm already there. I'm jumping right to it.
Yeah, let's talk
Yeah, could you
about
tell me a little bit about
audience participation. When we think about it, we think about us having to do the performance for the performer, that we're doing it because no one else will do. And it's almost like class when a teacher isn't getting an answer, and then they're basically hoping someone's going to raise their hand and do something about it. I don't want to give away too much, but I use that idea of not me. It's not me. Because that's how we feel about the overdose epidemic. When we think it doesn't affect us, there are people out there who think they don't know drug users or love drug users, and that's because of the stigma that they're not out to those people who think they don't know them. And those are the same people who think they don't know will need Narcan. And so for me, I use audience participation to parallel the bystander effect of someone having to stand up and look at someone knocked out and see if they can awaken. And it's so fucked up because like they do this thing called Narcan pilot programs, Narcan vending machines. The stigma is so baked in. They would never do a pilot and the idea of doing a pilot program for Narcan vending machines is nationwide, and it's happening in the Chicago CTA, which is our transportation. They didn't do that with masks. It's because some people deserve to die. Narcan has been around since the 70s in a shot form. So
vending machines that you'd have to like put money in to get Narcan.
No, you have to press buttons, and so like even that is like coming from a privileged perspective of it being like all nice and neat, and look, it's a machine that controls and chords it. And like the Chicago Public Library, the most significant thing they'll be known for ever is the fact that they have free Narcan in a case in their front. And that's so powerful. My food bank, Nourishing Hope, they put Narcan way in the back, and you have to walk past everyone. And that's not how it should be done. It's people who need Narcan don't want to be seen getting it sometimes.
Yeah.
But the Chicago Public Library, about a few years ago, they were recorded to have given out upwards of 10,000 free Narcans.
Wow. That is really impressive.
Yes. Do you want to, we started talking about audience participation. Do we want to save the overdose topic for a little later? Do you want to talk about audience participation? Am I the interviewer now?
I'd love to hear about the nature of the audience participation.
Cool. So I about 15 years ago, I was in an so I'm just going to talk about why I love audience participation. I was in an audience of Taylor Mack's The Beast of Taylor Mack, and that solo show has the word A in parentheses, so it's best or beast. And it was my first solo show, and my teacher drove me down from Oklahoma to Dallas to see it because it was on tour. And I had never seen a drag queen live, and I had just told I was doing a solo show, independent study with my teacher who changed my life, Matt Tomlanovich. And Matt just had me in his office, and I came out to him in a monologue.
Oh my God.
And I hadn't done it to anyone else. And then he had seen the show, and he brought me back. And in the show, Taylor Mack asks all the straight people to stand up. And I didn't stand up. And I looked around, and all these older queens, all these older gay people were smiling at each other, and then they saw the youngest person sitting, and they all looked at me. Audience participation can be used to out people or to make fun of people or to other people in a weird way. But in that moment, I felt less alone. And, you know, when things change you, you don't realize they change you when they're changing you. And I forgot about that story for the longest time, but it's like now all I do is audience participation. And I've been doing it since 2014. There's a show where I cast boyfriends on stage from the audience, and I'm alone on stage for 10 minutes. And we're cooking my mother's meatballs so she can come back from the dead in a seance to approve of them. And that's called Meatball Seance. It's been done 95 times, 6 countries if you count Florida. But that show, when I started doing it, people would shake. And so I just got better and better about sharing the joint we get or the high we get from performing with the audience. And to me, you know, people just think it's bad because it can be bad. Well, so can Shakespeare. Shakespeare can be so bad. So much so that I tend not to want to see it, which is what people feel about audience participation.
I'm curious about how do you said like sharing the joint to share that high. How do you do that, or how does one do that?
Well, I coach audience participation, so I'm not going to be specific. I'm going to, tout my one-on-one coaching services now. But I mean, I always describe it as hosting a party. My mother would go to each and every person, invite them out, and make sure they had what they needed to have a good time. And that's what, and you know, when I make choices, it's all about what's the most fun choice. Because if I'm having
Yeah.
fun, it's more contagious than COVID. They hooked up EKGs to an audience of dream girls about a decade ago, like heart rate monitors, and their heart rate synced. And that's what performers feel on stage. And I'm making a holding a heart. When I think about the adrenaline we get, that's what it is. And when I think about audience participation, I think of it, or I'm thinking of it now, as us touching each other's hearts.
That's beautiful.
It's also finally the populace wants it. And Theater of America wants audience participation. Over half of Gen Z lists their most desired profession as social media influencers. 40% of all other generations list that as well.
Wow.
And we're doing Arthur Miller, and theaters are like, how do we get a younger audience? You don't really want a younger audience.
You want people to like Arthur Miller.
Death of a Salesman, more like Death of American Theater.
I'm thinking of all the awful ways that someone might update Death of a Salesman. He's no longer a salesman, he's an influencer.
Whoa. Death of an Influence. That's pretty good.
That's, damn, I gotta, yeah.
Just put me on the thank you list when it goes to Broadway, okay?
Yeah.
It could happen.
So, can I ask about the title? Tell me a little bit about how you came up with the title Spank Bank Time Machine.
I mean, it's all based on who it's about. My 3 beautiful friends died of an overdose, and I was tired of people saying I'm sorry. And I was very tired of them making the facial expression that my lived reality, learning about it, just hearing about it, was contagious. And calling the show My 3 Friends Died of an Overdose, and it made me have panic attacks and lead me down to a journey of realizing I'm bipolar. And then I can only talk about 2 of them because it's too complicated to talk about the third one, because the third one wouldn't like the attention. That title wasn't as fun as Spank Bank Time Machine. It was the working title when only one of them had died, because when the first one died, I knew what I was going to do already. And then the tragedy of the other 2 dying, and the tragedy of them not having an afterlife through stories, because all we can do is say I'm sorry. We never ask what was their name. And the reason why people love the show, if they love the show, they either love the show or they hate it. The reason why they love the show is because my friends are in the room. And I write the top lines of a play at the beginning of making it. And the first line I wrote in that show was, my dead friends would spank me if a show about them was sad. And, someone actually spanks me on stage.
I was gonna say it depends, if you want the spanking or don't want the spanking, whether that's a good or a bad thing.
I mean, well, it is sad. It's terribly sad, but the sad comes after you can't stop laughing. Because that's the last one who died had a death wish so public that days after he died, when we were planning the memorial, several people told me, don't you forget John Michael. And the death wish was, at the eulogy, don't you mention what a considerate, compassionate friend I am before you talk about my 11-inch cock.
That's just good playwriting.
Well, he wasn't a playwright, but he was an engineer. He definitely had a way of words, saying things he would say on stage for an audience is an afterlife. But such a considerate, compassionate thing to give us one last laugh. And in the memorial, like a third of the people there had slept with him. So I had gotten them to show everyone else how big it was with their hand. And no
There's
one...
something really great about just like the I don't know, like showing the cock size feels so similar to also just like the praise up hands or any kind of like church gesture.
I love that.
I grew up going to like a very non-denominational Baptist church, and I just remember a lot of people going praise be, and that so easily turns into this motion.
Rest in penis. No one wanted this in the Chicago theater community. They were so scared with the idea that I was making a clown show about overdoses. Clowns don't like it for the most part when they hear what I'm doing a clown show about. And then the proper theater people didn't like it that I was doing it either. You know, Cola says you got to trust the voice in your head that says you're right.
Yeah. It's sort of like you're from the clown community. They don't want such an intense subject matter, and from the sort of more traditional community, they don't want this odder format. Maybe
I would love to play a lighthouse keeper or a pirate or a knight, but I can't do that. And to my friends who have those shows, I'm only giving you shade so that you reach out to me.
right.
And those shows are beautiful, but like I am a trauma clown. And that...
I love that the most traditional form of theater that you pulled out, the top three were pirate, lighthouse keeper, and knight. Those are the...
I was about to list a cowboy. And all those people, if they were to hear it, which I hope they have better things to do. They know who they are. I mean, they're in Edinburgh, so they're not going to listen to them. So
playing a lighthouse keeper.
And that guy's not in Edinburgh. Great shows, but the knight, the cowboy, the pirate, they're...
I feel like this is some C.S. Lewis sequel. The knight, the pirate, and the lighthouse keeper.
I mean, clowns take stereotypes and they subvert them, and those are amazing shows, but I just can't do those shows, unfortunately.
You're the trauma clown.
Yes.
I'm sort of tracing my thoughts back because something you said triggered a question that I'm just walking back through the garden path of my mind to find that question. There's something about making art. This notion about what you said about like there is no afterlife. I'm thinking about what it was might have been like Stephen Colbert asking Keanu Reeves, "What do you think happens when we die?"
Oh.
And Keanu Reeves said, "I think when we die, the people who love us will miss us." And
well, that's what Jesus is.
Yeah.
People love Jesus and they talk about him so much that they try to be like him. And in my AA, I'm sober. You know, I go to a Buddhist AA and then the traditional AA because the traditional AA has hotter people in it. I also like the idea of a sponsor because it's like attention, but the higher power thing really fucked with me. And then I realized I already talked to my dead mother. And I don't need faith with that power because it's scientifically proven that she is my maker. But I've been saying prayers to Kurt Cobain recently to help me control my bipolar powers. So
yeah. That's a very sort of cool and naturally developing polytheism, like the gods that actually are relevant to us, like our mother, Kurt Cobain,
Yeah.
whoever else fills out that like the like highly localized pantheon that actually relates to us, as opposed to some more sort of abstract, obscure thing.
And I found God. Yeah. 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 I like you. I'm not gonna crack. I love you. I'm not gonna crack. I hate you. I'm not gonna crack. Yeah. Yeah. It's a prayer, Lithium.
So it was written. I was gonna ask like what kind of prayers to Kurt Cobain. It sounds like it's specifically about sort of conversations around bipolar.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to kill myself. Uh, and bipolar people have 20 to 30 times more likelihood of doing that. Um, but I also want to never diss my abilities. And, yes, there's some scary things about people who have bipolar. 25% of violent crimes are committed by bipolar people.
Wow.
And that's because people don't pay attention to us and we get crazy, pun intended. But we also have this invincibility mania that makes us think we can do anything, and that is creative. And so for me, I think of bipolar powers and I think about being an X-Men with Professor Xavier and how I have to go to his school to control it. Because it's never an excuse for unwanted behavior, but it is always an explanation.
Right.
But I've been telling people that like I have a new play about bipolar. Some of the top lines are, if you don't like me, you're an ableist. Bipolar people are better at being depressed than you. And everyone hates when you say their experience is worse. Oh my God, the easiest way to piss a progressive off is to say you had, or to suggest your COVID experience was worse than them. Oh my God. And then they say no oppression Olympics, but they all say no lives matter until trans Black lives matter, which is the oppression Olympics, but it's true. No lives matter till trans Black lives matter. They just want to say, don't play oppression Olympics because they'll lose. Or they don't like having tough conversation, which is a losing thing. And then also, it's actually no lives matter till Black trans schizophrenic lives matter.
There's these signs that are like, we're trying to get people to go into STEM majors: science, technology, engineering, math, and then they add the A for arts. Also arts, STEAM. Put
Wait,
some
what?
STEAM in that STEM. Have you heard of these things?
Well, I know about STEM, but the
inclusion of the A.
Why would we I can't imagine the capitalists are championing arts because they definitely want us to think that creativity is replaced by AI because then they can control us.
This is one of those things that like arts colleges do. They say like, don't just STEM, STEAM. And they put a little A inside. And I'm like, I love that it's like the arts college that's like, okay, the tech people like STEM. How can we like include... But then it gets better because I passed a church that said, not STEAM, stream. And guess what the R stands for? It's religion.
Oh, no!
I'm sorry, I should have let you guess.
I was going to say revolution.
Ooh, that's good. That'd be better.
Stream.
Stream, yeah, not STEM.
Okay.
And not STEAM, but stream.
I bet Jesus was into water sports.
He's over the saying, guess, what do you want to see me walk on next?
Whoa. Whoa. Speaking of schizophrenic and bipolar,
Was Jesus bipolar maybe?
yeah, and schizophrenic. I mean, all the best parts in literature and plays are schizophrenic and bipolar. All of them. Ophelia, Jesus, Lady Macbeth, Joan of Arc, and all these actors would fight to play those parts. And as an actor, you're supposed to see the best in them. And yet, if someone were to have a panic attack, they would call them trauma dumper or a Karen, or say that it's their responsibility for mental health reform. They have no idea that for some people like me, it took 13 different rounds of psychotropic meds to be this charming. They have no idea that bipolar happens sometimes when you're in your 30s. They have no idea that it is being argued to be more nurtured than genetic now. And, you know, obviously, if you don't want to spend time with someone struggling, there is a boundary thing, but calling them a trauma dumper makes fun of them. And then all of a sudden, it's not okay to not be okay. Which people like, you know, it's all character blaming. There is such a thing as accountability. But accountability with mental health, the unscathed have no idea how hard that is. I did 10 years of talk therapy, and not once did they say to me, you might be literally crazy. I had to go to a psychiatrist and ask why I was screaming, and they were like, because you're on Lexapro, and that happens with bipolar people. And I'm like, I'm bipolar? And then they were like, yeah. You haven't stopped talking for 15 minutes. And you're doing voices of your dead friends and talking about doing drugs up your ass on stage. Yeah, you're bipolar.
This reminded me of the monologue that you said you used to come out to your teacher. Was it a monologue that you had written beforehand?
I had outlined it. So and I would write it down after I performed it. When I found out who Spalding Gray was, he shared Elizabeth Lecomte as a lover with Willem Dafoe, and that was in the Rooster Group, and they were students of Richard Schechner, and he did a movie called The Killing Fields, where he was the lead as a journalist, and he wrote a solo show called Swimming to Cambodia. That got very famous. And in it, he sits at a table with a legal pad and he talks. And there's an outline, and every bullet is a story. And that's how Mike Daisy writes and performs. It's how I perform, but I don't write the outline down. It's called extemporaneous performance. Alexander Tatarsky does not have a script. I don't know if they record it and then try to write a script. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So Spank Bank has a script, and there's moments when there's room for offers from the audience that I shift.
Is this the first one that you've done that has more of a script like that, or is that something that you'd already played around with previous ones?
I was forced to. A theater company said they would do my dementia play called Dementia Me, and dementia people are played by balloons. They said they would only do it if I wrote the script down. Right. And starting then I realized the more I wrote things down, the better. and it's made me a better writer. But there's something that will never be replaced by starting with an idea and getting the audience's reaction to finish the idea.
Right.
And Spank Bank and Meatball Seance are really, and Narcan Time Machine, 3 of my plays are the only plays that have really gotten to be so developed by an audience. And so when I do a Spank Bank in Philly, it would be the 44th time. So it is a well-oiled machine now.
Nice.
But like the other versions were also well-oiled, they just weren't so intricately formed at the moment.
Yeah.
My best performance, one of my best performances I've given was on an outline, but there was such theater magic that happened. I didn't have diarrhea. I was really excited about moving in with my partner at the time. I had just gotten promotion at work. The audience was full. My collaborator was in a good mood. Everything was perfect. But that moment is such, and I have it on film, and that show is called It's Not All About You, John Michael. But that moment, it was just, that's why I'm an extemporaneous deviser, and I need an audience, because, when you're listening, they're in the story with you.
A lot of like traditional theater, it gets to tech week and they're like, all right, we're gonna add like the final ingredient, which is the audience. And it always sort of bothered me in a way, because I was like, you don't really, like, your show is pretty, like, this kind of theater actually needs the audience to be generated or something in a way, or to be made.
Sure. All my career, I've started out from 5 to 10 minutes I would perform in front of an audience. When I moved to
Yeah.
Chicago a decade ago, the thing that's really made me is the amount of reps I've been able to do in variety shows. And
Right.
experiment with form, style, and tone. And so with Spank Bank Time Machine, I had 70 minutes of film of about 5 different variety show pieces done over a period of a year. And my director and I watched it, and my director's Sami Zaisel, and we're working on our 9th rehearsal process right now for the bipolar play. Sammy saw the 70 minutes of film, and this was, at the beginning of rehearsals for Spank Bank, and he said 50 minutes of this is the overdose play that people have seen. 50 minutes is the play I don't want to direct. The play I want to direct ends with this 5 minutes here. And then 15 minutes we realized was the beginning.
That's a good conversation to have. That sounds like it has the potential to be a difficult conversation, but it is
well,
the exact kind of conversation that one wants to have with a longtime collaborator.
If you don't listen to who's in the room with you, you hired wrong, or you're delusional that you're good enough, that you're better than them, and you might as well just be a fucking stand-up at that point. But like, I'm a total bottom when it comes to in bed and in the rehearsal room. On stage, I'm a top. The audience better submit to me. But as I've gotten older, I know that bad ideas inform good ideas, because you realize why it's bad, or you realize you were wrong. But it's like, to me, I want all my collaborators to be fully listened to, and I want to take all notes. In tech, I wear a shirt that says vocal rest, and I try to go in the green room and get called out every 20 minutes. Like in a tech for that's not on tour for a show that's in development. I have a director who we just did our second show together, Abby Pajakowski, neo-futurist ensemble member. And at the first tech, they kept asking what I thought, and I just had the same response. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And it took me a long time to realize that that's actually more power than making every choice. And my work is so about me. It's so about my heart. You know, I don't know why I make shows. I don't write what I know. I write to know. And I hated the feeling I had after they died. And it wasn't just grieving them. It was the idea that I couldn't carry them on. And academics want what I'm about to say at the beginning of a project. But the thesis of that show and my other shows is when there's respectfulness, sensitivity, or reverence by witnesses of trauma survivors, that adds to taboo and stigma. So I'll say it again. When it's not the survivors, when it's people witnessing them, and they try to be appropriate, that it creates stigma. Because everyone was like, oh, this conversation is sticky. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. Oh, I must feel so sorry for them. Right. And it goes back to that death wish my best friend had, which was, don't you let anyone know what a good person or considerate friend I was before you tell them about my 11-inch cock. And that's his lover. And that was the first one who died. This one's called Fun Monster. And this one's called Gay Evil Knievel. And every queer person has a Fun Monster and a Gay Evil Knievel in their friend group. Or they will. And so, like, again, what a considerate thing that he told me how he wanted to be remembered.
Yeah. Damn. Thank you for sharing this.
How, you know, warm it is. And his life is after his physical form.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah, thank you for saying all this. I'm especially I'm loving what you're saying also just about like the notion of like, oh, thinking when we put brain power into am I behaving appropriately, that's actually like causing the trauma, causing the tension, causing these like a stoppage in the flow or something, a stoppage in the flow of whatever needs to flow through these things.
Well, an Uber driver told me, because I was complaining about how the only thing people will say about my dead mom is I'm sorry. And he says, what was her name? And then I said, Elizabeth. And then he said, what does she like to do? And then she was back alive in that car. And I say it all the time. And it's one of the coolest party tricks out there. And that's so I've never called it a party trick, but it's a party trick. Because like we want to celebrate people. As a white passing Mexican, I want all you gringos to appropriate Dia de los Muertos. And you know, I ask some, never, very rarely has a conversation stopped. Well, actually, no one's ever gotten mad at me for asking the name of who they lost. They might be a little more sensitive if it just happened. But most of the time, people light up because then I can be like, what was their favorite band? If they were visiting you, what would you do?
Yeah.
What did you hate about them? Is like my favorite question to ask. Because you think because they're dead, and you think because you miss someone that you can't be mad at them, and that's totally. We haven't really talked about theater that much, have we?
Oh, I
Oh,
beg to
can I
differ.
teach Narcan? Describe this to the audience.
It is glittery and it's shaped like a, well, to me, it looks like a glittery spaceship.
Great, awesome. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw Narcan. It is a bedazzled with fake gemstones Narcan, and I wear it as a necklace. And my friends were sparkly. And the first one who died, Gave or Knievel, he had a phone on his hand, and he was Googling what to do if you get fentanyl. That was June 2020, and I did, and at that time, we didn't know that that was Narcan. So he was Googling what Narcan was when he felt a different high. I get to talk about him, and in his memory, I've handed out 2,500 Narcans and have done 43 Narcan demonstration scenes because there's a young adult play that I do now called Narcan Time Machine. Now, 2,500 Narcans, that is counting that 2 Narcans come into a box. The reason why there are 2 Narcans is because sometimes you need more than one. Now, one of the things I hate, or I think is stigmatizing about Narcan, is when people use the phrase Narcan training. That implies you need to go to school or register for a class or be certified. You don't need that for condoms or masks. So what I like to rephrase when I'm telling you are Narcan tips. When you get a box of Narcan, there are pictures telling you what to do. Children have done Narcan. People who are high have done Narcan. When I talk about it in the show, I talk about it as a time machine because I wish I had a time machine to go back when I wasn't screaming at my friends for using, when we could know what Narcan was, when I could be gentle to them enough for them to call me when they were going to use. And I thought it looked like a spaceship too, and calling it a time machine makes it fun. So it reverses the effects of an opioid overdose. It goes back in time. The drugs in Narcan, what it does is it kicks off the opioids that sit on the opioid receptors. And the opioids on these opioid receptors stop your heart. So if you're not overdosing, it's not going to do anything bad to you. Okay, so you see someone who might be overdosing. What are the signs? Trouble breathing, blue lips. But the biggest sign of an overdose is they're not waking up. So you scream their name, you shake them. One of the things I do on the train is I will look at someone and try to breathe with them. And I will often be able to, within about 10 seconds, see them breathing. And then I don't disturb their nap. When you shout them and shake them, if they're not waking up, there's 2 important steps, and it is not gentle. The sternum, which is like right above the rib cage, you take a fist and you rub vigorously. That should jolt them up. You might need, if you don't know them, you might have to be ready to run because that's not a fun thing. And this might be like catching them, or they might be in that space between overdosing and being high. And then the last way to jolt them is you take your 2 fingers and you rub where the mustache is, or would be. They're not waking up. You turn them on their backside and you tilt their head back and you take the Narcan out of the package. It's a spaceship with a red little plunger underneath. You press the red in the nose. So you put it in the nose and you press it. You take a step back. You wait for 2 to 3 minutes. To prevent brain damage, you want to get a plastic bag or a mouth-to-mouth protector. Or, I mean, you want to do mouth-to-mouth. If you're scared, all you need is just a plastic trash bag, make a little hole and breathe through it. You give them a few breaths, and then you take a breath. And then you give them a few breaths, and then you take a breath. You breathe for them, and then you breathe together. After 2 to 3 minutes, you do the other Narcan. Sometimes it takes about 5 to 6. At the beginning, you want to call 911 and put them on speaker. You don't have to say, nor should you, that someone's overdosing. What you say is they're not breathing and they're not responding. It hopefully prevents police from coming.
Gotcha.
Now, there are some paramedics out there who will not Narcan someone without police present. And it's because when someone gets brought back to life, they have withdrawal symptoms that are intense. Now, it can be violent. There's 2 types of people who overdose: people who do it, who get fentanyl or xylazine or nitrazine accidentally, or those who are going for fentanyl and just did too much. That's like a opioid addiction. So people with opioid addictions, they tend to have the more likelihood of being aggressive. If there's someone who have an accidental poisoning, they will be more likely not to be aggressive. You can tell, apparently. I have a friend who's a former biker who never runs away because, as he says, I have street skills, John Michael. But he said to me, but you better run your ass away. Now, unfortunately, he suggests that me and people who don't have experience with the unhoused or resources or work for a harm reduction organization call 911. But he can sometimes vibe it out that someone's going to be okay. The reason why you would not want to do that is because they might overdose again. So I think those are the basics. I do want to plug a company, Prevention Point Philadelphia. Have you heard of them?
Oh, yeah.
They are providing the free Narcan time machines for everyone in my audience. And all you need to do to get free Narcan in Philadelphia is to Google where can you get free Narcan. There are several websites. There's a company called nextdistro.org, which will ship it to you. I do want to shout out Sean Westfall, I think is how I say his name. He's the prevention and harm reduction coordinator. One of the things that happens is towards the end of the play, I talk about the local overdose epidemic so that I can action the audience into getting involved or just being aware. And so I eventually am going to talk to Sean on the phone and hear about what makes Philly's overdose epidemic specific to Philly.
Thank you so much for doing this work.
I had to do it.
Yeah.
I had to do it.
Yeah.
When it happened, it was like, this is the hardest art I've ever made. It's fun to make the play, but it is soul crushing every time an artistic director ignores me. It is because it's hard not to think about the erasure of my friends. And of course, they aren't thinking that. But, theater companies don't reject people anymore. They ignore them. But, this play, I never want to do something this intense again. And it was I basically became Larry Kramer in a mankini. And we haven't talked about the costume yet.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the mankini at all yet.
I wanted to wear something that made Gay Evel Knievel jealous.
Hell yeah.
He was a stripper.
Wow.
And that's where my butt goes.
And
here is where my clown nose goes, which is what I call my penis. And I've been I've been an underwear clown for several plays now, and I haven't paid for underwear since 2019 because I have an underwear sponsor named Andrew Christian, and I could never afford their underwear. These mankinis are all $69. And if you put a link to Andrew Christian on the website, they might be more likely to give me more free underwear. So
we are all about that. Absolutely.
One last plug. I'm looking for pilots, flight attendants, doctors to be my future ex-husband and support my art.
Excellent.
So
we can definitely put out a call.
No actors. And
no.
Especially no fucking clowns. I'm the clown.
We'll get some software bros out in the audience.
Oh, please, tech bros. They can build my website. They can help me. Like, what's it called when you get more Googleable?
That is search engine optimization.
Oh. Are you an otter? Because you're wearing a bear shirt.
Oh my god, this fucking bear shirt that I put this on and didn't realize I had it on until I sat down.
Are you a gay man?
I am.
We didn't talk about gay stuff that much.
We didn't. I mean,
we did.
We did a little bit, but we could always do more.
Sure. I can't wait to meet you in person and smell armpits.
Ditto.
I can only get high off of attention and armpits. AA. That's I have prepared jokes about sobriety because it sucks.
I'm so looking forward to it.
Thank you again to John Michael for speaking with me about your work, and thank you to you, our listeners, for listening. Spank Bank Time Machine runs September 12th, 13th, 14th, and 17th at the Louis Bluver Theater at the Drake.